Overfilled dumpster equals upset HOA lady. This is a 5-part saga that spans over 5 years. Got this from my HOA today. I know, when the dumpster is overflowing, let's not evaluate if we need another dumpster. Let's just yell at the people who live here. Notice, as all of you are aware, this past week the dumpster was once again left open and unlocked due to the irresponsible overfilling of garbage and large pieces of debris. We have asked numerous times in the past to not overfill the dumpster. It not only presents an unsightly scene within our community, but also creates other liability problems for the association and generates member complaints. We have a twice per week pickup schedule, Tuesdays and Fridays, and retain a large capacity trash bin to accommodate our residents, so there is no excuse for this to be happening at any time. The association cost to have this 2 pickup weekly schedule is $926 per month, so adding an additional dumpster is not a board consideration, nor is it necessary. Therefore, if on occasion you see that the dumpster is full, then take your trash back home with you and dispose of it when the dumpster has been emptied. It would also help if residents would not dispose of their trash in large boxes. Instead, use plastic bags. Boxes must be broken down before disposal. And, more importantly, do not put large pieces of furniture, building materials, and any of that type of debris in the dumpster unless it is broken down into very small pieces. If it can't be broken down into small pieces, then do not put it in the dumpster or on the outside of the dumpster. We expect everyone to cooperate regarding this matter and hope that this is the last time we have to address this issue. What this lady fails to realize is that the lock is broken and everyone already holds their trash for days at a time. Our very angry HOA president sends these out every once in a while. I'm not sure why they're so against another pickup or a second dumpster. Granted, in the HOA's defense, people do sometimes throw away stuff that they shouldn't, but this thing is constantly overfilling with just normal trash. We got another notice. To all residents. Twice now this week, the dumpster has been filled to overflow capacity. As you all know, we have sent out numerous notices warning that the trash company charges us an additional large fee when this is done. There is no excuse for this. We have a twice-a-week pickup schedule which is sufficient for this size community, and if the dumpster is full, hold your trash until the dumpster is emptied. As you've also been asked before, please cut up Christmas trees and garden trimmings into small pieces and break down boxes before putting them in the bin. That way, there is more room for additional trash. Please do not make us have to send out any more warnings regarding this issue. And another notice. To all residents. The board, on numerous occasions, has asked all of you to please not overload the dumpster, but it has apparently fallen on deaf ears. So you thoroughly understand why this is important, we have attached our current billing invoice, showing just how much our trash service has charged us within a 1-month period for overfilling the dumpster. As you can see, the amount for this month alone totals $264. Having to pay these large over-budget charges affects how we have to plan for other needed repairs or improvements. Again, and hopefully for the last time, we are requesting your cooperation by not overfilling the dumpster. We also ask that any resident who sees someone doing this to please report it to the board so that disciplinary action can be taken. Remember, this affects all of us, especially financially. The attached bill does show that we're paying over $1,000 a month for a 5-yard dumpster. That seems quite excessive to me, and even the trash provider's website says that it should cost roughly $400 after all the taxes and fees, so I'm not really sure what to make of that. I'm also not sure where she got the overage fee. It's pretty clearly listed as $176, not $264 in the bill. So I responded to the above email, and so did another person. This was the president's response. Hopefully this means progress. To the membership. I have already made contact and am waiting for a call back from our account manager, so please hold off from sending me any more emails regarding this issue. I will send out another notice when we make a determination of how to solve this problem. In the meantime, until I find out if we have any other alternatives, please do not overfill the dumpster. I just received this notice from our HOA president. To all residents, this is to notify you that we have negotiated a new contract with Waste Services. Changes which will take effect soon include the following. Container size will increase from the current 5-yard capacity to 6-yard capacity. Pickup schedule will change from the current 2 times per week on Tuesdays and Fridays to 3 times per week on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. Monthly rate will decrease from $1,125 to $660. All administrative, fuel, and franchise fees that we were paying were waived. However, a new City Waste Authority fee of 10% of our $600 base rate is mandatory. What has not changed is the dumpster lock. No new keys needed. Boxes and large items must still be broken down. Christmas trees and large pieces of shrubbery must still be cut into small pieces. And building materials and so on must be cut into smaller pieces. The attached trash container rules and banned waste materials and all of the above must be done before depositing into the trash container. No items of any kind are to be left outside around the dumpster. Because we do not have an enclosed container area, and so as to maintain an orderly community appearance, we also ask that everyone, please, take the time to make sure there is no spillage around the dumpster, and, if there is, please pick it up and deposit it in the dumpster. I am so happy that we have a proper resolution to this problem, but I am shocked that after all of these years, she never reached out to the trash company and instead just yelled at the residents. It was only after I suggested it a few days ago that she did it. The final update 5 years later. Not long after the contract was negotiated and the dumpster size increased, it was suddenly decreased without notifications to the membership, and the price started bouncing between $750 to $950 per month. Well, last week, I was elected president of the association. My first order of business? I called Republic and spoke to our account manager, something the previous board of 15 years never did, and I successfully doubled our dumpster capacity and cut our price down to $400, even for the next 2 years guaranteed. Nearly $5,000 a year I just saved by making a 10-minute phone call and a few emails. Look at this fallout. So if I'm reading this right, not only did you get a bigger dumpster and extra pickup, but also cut the price almost in half? That's daggone impressive. That's what it appears. I'm thinking this trash contract was set up an incredibly long time ago and was never renegotiated. Massive failure on the HOA's part. What do you think about this 5-year-in-the-making story? This shows persistence against the HOA Karens comes out on top. Wow. As we get into the next story, I have to tell you something. Hey, also I added more stories to the new 24/7 HOA Karen radio stream on the channel, perfect to binge or play for background noise while you sleep. Check out the link in the description or on the front page of the channel. It looks like this. HOA story time. Tenant handles a Karen neighbor in a very creative and funny way. So, unfortunately, one of my rentals shares the same courtyard as this old Karen, who, for the lack of better description, has nothing better to do but to be the community mall cop and to report people who violate every HOA rule to the board. It's obvious that she's been there for a long time as the original owner, and she hates the tenants and investors, and uses her free time to try and annoy and pester anyone in the community that is not owner-occupied. My tenants are a couple, professional with a toddler, very respectful, and just all-out good people. So, a few months ago, I start getting an inch of HOA violation notices for the stupidest crap. I get one because they left their baby stroller outside in the private patio. HOA rules say that private patio is not supposed to be used as a place of storage. And then, another HOA notice about leaving a shoe rack outside of their doorstep, and another notice about leaving an Amazon open box on the patio. It is annoying as heck, and every single time my immigrant tenants apologize, and I'm like, what the heck are you apologizing for? You didn't do anything wrong. Some butthole is being petty. So every single time I go to the HOA board meeting, and then I argue these stupid write-ups, I'm like, hey, what the heck? I point out a dozen or so other units, they have a lot more crap on their patio, and they don't get violations, and then threaten to sue the board for selective enforcement of HOA rules, discrimination, and financial damage to me from the constant harassment. They usually back off then and say, never mind. So one day, I get a call from them, and they say that this old lady neighbor was there, complaining to them about how they left some beach towels and a wetsuit outside on a temporary drying rack to dry, and they can't use the patio for that. Holy crap, she's been the one that's been complaining all this time. So I go over there, thinking just the worst, thinking that my tenant has this huge old 6-foot-tall drying rack hanging similar to the one that I have at home, and putting out their underwear on it, only to see When I get there, there's like a 2-foot tall drying rack that's lower than the retaining wall of the patio that you can't even see unless you're literally within 5 feet from the patio peeking over. I was thinking, you gotta be kidding me, really? So I'm talking to this old lady that has nothing better to do. I'm like, look, Karen, you can't even see anything from your patio. The only way you can see this is if you're within 5 feet. Just go around and don't bother them and we won't bother you, okay? But no, she has to make her point, which is be an HOA rule jerk, and report both me and the tenant to the HOA board. And so I'm like, just fine, you do that, lady. So I go home, I'm just fuming that this old lady is wasting my time and my tenant's time on stupid crap. I find my 6-foot tall laundry rack, I drop it off at my tenant's place, and I set it up in the backyard patio and tell him, please, air dry all of your clothes for the next week, especially underwear. And if this lady reports it, let her. Screw her. Here's a Starbucks gift card for your inconvenience of not using the dryer. Reluctantly they did, and yes, I got written up twice for the same thing, which means that it included a $200 fine. So I go to the HOA board meeting. The Karen lady is there complaining about how my tenants hung clothes outside 2 times now, despite getting a warning. When the board asked me, I said, yeah, that's correct. And it's their legal right to do that in this state. Confused, the board asked me, what do I mean? And I told them, well, in this state, thanks to AB 1448, CVC 1940.20, and 4750.10, also known as the Right to Dry Law, an HOA cannot legally ban hanging laundry outside, nor can they have them any rules that prevent tenants or owners from hanging laundry outside. No different than legally an HOA cannot outright ban anyone from putting a satellite dish outside. The HOA can impose rules governing how drying racks or satellite dishes can be placed. For example, rules stating that such things cannot be permanently attached to common area or building structure, but they cannot outright ban them, and those rules specifically have to describe the details of those restrictions in order to be enforceable. Your HOA rules governing laundry, clothes, and so on predates AB 1448, which was created for energy conservation by encouraging people not to run a dryer, and has no details on the restrictions of when temporary drying racks can or can't be used. So your rule violates state's laws, and it's not enforceable. My tenant only needs permission to use drying racks, and they have my permission, please note. Talk to your attorneys, because I already talked to mine. The HOA board concludes with a, we'll get back to you, Mr. X, and I don't hear about it for a few days. And then, finally, I get a call that says, our attorneys reviewed your complaint, and in a nutshell, as long as the drying racks are not being permanently attached, state law says that you can have an outdoor drying rack. So, after I got that from the HOA board, was I being a vindictive butt when I gave my tenants a Starbucks gift card while asking them for a favor to hang some underwear on a 6-foot tall drying rack outside for 2 months to crap on the Karen neighbor? Also, was I a bigger butt when Karen contacted me to complain further, and I told her, well, if it bothers you so much, you can get one of those patio wind shades to block your view so you don't see my tenant's underwear. But if you do that, and if I see it when I'm checking up on my property, I'm going to have to report you to the HOA because, unfortunately, patio wind shades are not a state law protected class of apparatus from the HOA rules, which clearly bans these wind shades. Have a nice day. This is a perfect example, as our friend Rick Astley says, you know the rules and so do I. What would you do? Surprise HOA with updates posted by Happy Away From People. I bought my home in July 2022 in Kentucky. It's a home in a neighborhood and it was built 15 years ago. My neighborhood is big on young families, so about half, if not more, of the homeowners are not original. The neighborhood was developed by a builder very popular in the area. 2 weeks ago, everyone received a letter that our builders hired Omni, the devil, to oversee an HOA. The original homeowners said that they remembered this being mentioned when they bought the home. Everyone who bought a house from someone was not told this. It was not in our mortgage contract, and we were told no HOA. Because of this, several people have put above-ground pools, sheds, and porches, covered patios on their home. We all picked this neighborhood because it doesn't have an HOA. Now inspections are about to start, and we will get an annual fee. How is this legal? What can we do? Our neighborhood is so upset that we're trying to work together. First update. I've spoken to our agent who talked to clear title. Our HOA is not on our deed, nor the previous owners. They said that it could be on the master deed that the developer still has, but it usually is never needed in a closing, so it's never given unless special requests are made. I have a copy of our deed. Our next step is to discuss with the lawyer specializing in HOAs. We have proof that it was not disclosed to us, and the previous owners signed documents stating there are no HOAs. We are also not the only home in this situation. Our neighbors are experiencing the same frustrations. None of us have been asked to voluntarily join the HOA or to help establish one. The next update. This is not our first home purchase. Our previous home had an HOA. We signed documents and it was included in our closing. That is what I mean when I said our contract. Secondly, our agent is one of the top in the area, and she certainly didn't sell all the homes in our neighborhood. This is something not disclosed to multiple buyers over multiple years. It was a selling point of the neighborhood. People in my neighborhood have all been working together since the letter came to get answers. Tonight, we got some. The master deed and the covenants mentioning the HOA exist. The covenant was filed in 2014. There is no timeline. The title company did not do diligent work and they let half the neighborhood know. What does this mean? I don't know. The wording on the covenant says that anyone who purchases a deed in the neighborhood is automatically a member of the association. Automatically. That's some BS right there. Luckily, our house hasn't had any huge additions in our yard. My neighbor is elderly and just saved all his money working out of retirement, cutting corners to purchase and install a very large shed to do his hobby work. My other neighbors purchased a home with an above-ground pool and deck and shed already installed. This is gonna get nasty and expensive for my neighbors. I wish I knew how to upload redacted documents to show you guys the ridiculousness of this situation. I wish there was better buyer protection, and I feel like the best chance now is to get on the board when we can and to solve it. Unfortunately, Omni and my builder are notorious for staying stuck in the stage of HOA established and handing it off to the neighborhood. It may be years. The newest update. I've now spoken with Omni. Here's what I've learned. They believe the HOA was kicked into high gear because a neighbor or two has been complaining about a boat or RV. She couldn't say, but said it was made a priority in inspections. It's always a Karen over a silly thing. And there had been a secret board all along. It's been employees of the builder. The builder has 55 more houses to build. They plan to release the HOA to residents when it nears completion. No one, not even the builder, has a date for that. This builder has been mentioned in comments below, and the builder was supposed to maintain the common spaces since the building began. The common space is our entrance. A resident mentioned a playground and a pool was promised. Several older residents came forward to say that they have been doing the maintenance. There are no plans to have an HOA meeting with residents, despite me requesting one. All correspondence will be done individually by letter, email, or phone. Our neighboring neighborhood heard our issues and offered their HOA's lawyer's name to help us. We have another lawyer looking into it. He is not charging us a retainer. Would you lawyer up if you were OP, or would you try to handle it yourself? Because when it gets into this kind of matter, things can get a little messy. What do you think?
My HOA president just towed me and I'm not in his stupid HOA, but he doesn't know I have dirt on him. So one day, I step out to find my car gone, towed away by the HOA. Okay, fine, I parked it on the street a little bit late, but what happens next is like they declared war on my parking habits. Enter the HOA president, who thinks he's better than you because he lives in a nice house and makes good money. Not one to take things lying down, I decide to play detective in the HOA rulebook. It's thicker than Webster's dictionary, let me tell ya. But hey, turns out I didn't break any rules. Armed with this golden nugget, I confront the Barney Fife wannabe HOA president, playing it cool like a lawyer about to drop a bomb. He squirms, admits to a goof up, and I'm thinking, gotcha. But here's where it gets interesting. In my rulebook readings, I accidentally stumble upon some shady business within the HOA, stuff they're violating, like secrets that could blow up the whole neighborhood association. Ha! And guess who was at the helm? When I go back to the Andy Griffith knockoff, I don't outright blackmail the guy, but I sprinkle some hints about the skeletons I found. You should have seen his face. Pure panic. Suddenly, he's not just dealing with a parking rebel, he's dealing with someone who stumbled upon the HOA's dirty laundry. From that day on, the power dynamic just straight up flips. Call the HOA president Jim Carrey because he's Mr. Yes Man. Every time our paths cross, he's bending over backward to do me favors. Need your grass mowed? Call him. Mailbox acting up? He's on it like Superman. Word gets around the neighborhood about this shift, and my oh my, does it blow up in Prez's face. Let's just say that all those fines and tickets and the trouble that he dreamed of throwing at me about my parking situation, haven't heard about him lately. They've all dropped. It's over. I've won, and my neighbors see it too. We're like John Wayne toilet paper, rough, tough, and don't take no crap from him. I guess you could say I have our dear HOA leader in the palm of my hand. I mean, wow, if you're going to go that far as to dig up all the rule books, you really got the win there. You put in that effort, you get the results. Holy cow. How far would have you gone with this HOA president for screwing with your parking? This HOA story's insane. A resident has a family tragedy, pays their bills, and still gets stuck with a $20 late fee. The HOA lies and tries to screw him over in the hardest of times. By Singulon. What happens next? Literally just heard this exchange in a board meeting tonight, and my jaw just about dropped, although it wasn't exactly surprising. Apparently, the resident contacted the management company after their payment didn't go through on the online system, but it was already past the due date at that time. The resident explained their situation to the management company supervisor, how they'd fallen on hard times financially, and they were also dealing with a family tragedy. Then, they successfully paid the dues, and apparently, the supervisor said it was all taken care of. Fast forward to the board meeting tonight. The resident was not present, but the story was relayed by the management company rep. The same rep also goes on to say that there is no written proof of the management company supervisor agreeing to take care of the situation, just the verbal account by the resident. The resident was fined a $20 late fee as a result, which they asked to be waived after explaining their situation and their personal and financial troubles. The board votes no, 3-1, to waive the fine, and the treasurer says it's only $20 in the most callous and disregarding manner possible. At least one board member voted yes to waive the fine, which was surprising because that same board member is usually a hardcore butt and is almost universally disliked. I immediately volunteered to pay the fine for the resident. If it's only $20, then why does the board, who has something like $3 million in reserve funds, care? $20 to them is not the same as $20 to somebody who's struggling financially and dealing with a family tragedy at the same time. And it's not like the dues weren't paid. They were. The payment is just a few days late due to the extenuating circumstances as explained. Please don't think this post is to toot my own horn either. I was just blown away by the complete lack of compassion by most of the board for their fellow neighbor over something so self-admittedly minor. It's only $20. Imagine if more people had even the smallest amount of basic compassion for their fellow human beings, how much better life could be. I think the HOA is being a jerk on the principle of it all, which is silly and stupid because you gotta get stuff in writing or else crap like this will happen and you'll be taken advantage of. How would you handle it? HOA story time. Karen and the supposedly unauthorized construction by koalas and penguins. Miraculously, I found a home in an HOA that isn't horrible. Unfortunately, every HOA requires at least one Karen. Last year, I joined the HOA board for my neighborhood of townhomes. I wanted to finally have a say in what was happening in my community. In this short time, I have learned that very few people bother reading anything about their HOA before buying a home. Because of this, I see endless issues where people don't know what rules they've agreed to live by. It now surprises me when somebody acts responsibly and contacts the HOA with an appropriate request. 2 months ago, a responsible homeowner asked for approval to add a small patio to the grass in front of his home. This is a common landscaping feature in our neighborhood. Our rules state that he is welcome to add the patio as long as it is identical to the others in the community. So, of course, we approve the request. Now enters our neighborhood Karen. Karen lives next to this responsible homeowner, and on Monday, the construction began to install the patio. Karen started a verbal altercation with the homeowner's contractor. She demanded to see written approval and construction designs for everything. Karen was told to mind her own business. As a Karen, she then felt it was her responsibility to contact our HOA management company's emergency line. She berated the office staff for never calling or emailing her to ask permission to do the construction or inform her that it was approved. She felt that the space was close enough to her home that she had just as much right to it as her neighbor. She also kept repeating that there were many other HOA violations without giving any details. Karen was transferred to the property manager's mobile phone number to leave a message. Apparently, Karen said something concerning enough in the voicemail that I received an urgent call from the property manager. She begged me to walk over to the responsible neighbor's house, take a few pictures, and see if there was anything unusual about the construction work. She was worried that the patio may look different than the others in the neighborhood. So, I packed my toddler in her stroller and I took a walk down there. Ladies and gentlemen, everything was perfectly normal. There were no problems. The construction was not occurring anywhere near Karen's property. I was baffled as to why Karen would feel that she has some claim to the area that's on the opposite side of the neighbor's house from her. A few hours ago, I learned that Karen isn't even the homeowner of the property next to the responsible neighbor. She is the sister of the real homeowner. I learned this because the real homeowner went to our online resident portal to send the HOA a message. She seems to be embarrassed by her sister's behavior and stated that she actually read her homeowner documents and feels that the HOA has done a great job of handling this situation. I am praying that this is the end of this week's drama. What do you think about a no trespassing or restraining order against Karen? The HOA tries to force OP to follow rules that don't apply to them. They don't have to report to the HOA. Here's the story. My friends Jess, Megan, and I rent a house. We're all recent college graduates, young professionals, and we're decent roommates to each other and decent neighbors, as far as I can tell. The house we rent is part of a homeowners association, and the way that the laws work is that the HOA has a legal contract with the homeowner, and the homeowner who is leasing out a property has a legal contract with his tenants. But the HOA has no authority over the tenants legally. It's on the landlord to include the HOA rules in his lease with the tenants. Anyway, some of the HOA rules were in the lease, like only having cars parked in the garage and driveway, none on the street, and also no political signage in the front yard. But there were relatively few. The lease was pretty much your standard lease. Anyway, neighbors have come over several times to tell us about HOA laws that we're breaking. Not just the same few neighbors, there have been like 8. For example, they said we could not have junker cars in the driveway, and I was like, hey, it's not a junker. It runs, I drive it every day. Plus, you should be taking this stuff to the landlord. He's the homeowner in your association. The guy went off on me about how having cars like mine around lowers the property value, and I was like, my agreement was with the landlord. My lease says nothing about what cars that I can have. They don't like how my roommate has astrology wall tapestries over the windows instead of curtains, or how we have a fire pit outside, or how many friends that we have over even though we never break the rules about cars. Few of our friends drive. They told my roommate it's not allowed to do DIY projects like woodworking or car maintenance in the driveway, and told me about noise rules that do not line up with the city noise ordinance. They told my roommate her friends can't lock their bicycles up to the deck railing. Anyway, every time we tell these people that their contract is with the homeowner and our contract is with our landlord, we're following our contract and their contract is between them and the landlord. And they've complained that the landlord's hard to get a reach of. He travels a lot and he's not communicative. And we are the ones living in the community and we need to follow its rules. And everyone's saying to just read your lease, it should say this or that. We've read the lease. It doesn't say a thing about the HOA even directly. My roommate also had a local lawyer look at the lease and the local laws. That's where I got the info about the laws in this post. I'm going to trust a lawyer who knows my area's laws over what Reddit thinks the law should or might be. We can't get these fines passed down unless they're for violating our lease agreement. We can't get evicted by our landlord if we pay rent and follow the lease terms. The HOA can't evict us either. Is OP in the right here for just disregarding the HOA rules since they're not really in it? Or what would you do?
This HOA, could you hear the sarcasm in my voice? Let's begin. My husband and I moved into our neighborhood nearly 2 years ago. We have a set of neighbors next to us who, let's just say, haven't always felt the most neighborly. They're middle-aged and older, and the only thing that I can think is that they don't have interest knowing their much younger first-time homeowner neighbors. Anyways, they own 2 large dogs that they will occasionally leave out in their fenced-in backyard. It's only occasionally, not every day, but when they're outside, one of them will bark non-stop. And when I say non-stop, I mean non-stop, until it gets let back in. Usually they're only out for a little bit, so no big deal. But a few times they've been left out for a couple of hours at a time, meaning that a couple of hours of insistent, loud barking. At one point, I went down a rabbit hole of looking to file an anonymous noise complaint, but I was told I'd have to start a paper trail where I confront the neighbor about their noise, have them sign a document, then submit it, and basically follow up with any additional complaints. I forget the whole process, but I was not interested in starting a whole process with neighbors on this. Well, yesterday was bad. They let their dogs out at around 1 or 2 in the afternoon, and they were out all day. Non-stop barking until around 9 or 10 at night when they finally let the dogs back in. I was worried that they'd left for a trip and planned to leave the dogs out all night. After a few hours of that constant barking, my patience was wearing very thin. I was getting very frustrated. I saw in a Facebook group for our subdivision someone call out their specific house, no names mentioned, but specifically described their house and dogs, and asked them not to leave their dogs out barking all day. Someone else went on and commented, complaining as well. There was even another comment on that comment regarding the house. My better judgment failed me, and I went on and I left a short comment saying that I've heard the dogs barking too. They've left them out for hours before. Now this Facebook group gets a lot of posts every day, so I didn't think it would be seen by many. I expected it just to get buried, and really my main reasons for commenting were, for one, to tell the other neighbors that, yes, we hear it too, you're not crazy, and 2, start a trail if, well, there's anything the HOA can do to step in on noise complaints. Well, our neighbors saw it. I forgot the husband has my husband's cell number, so he sent my husband a text early this morning, ticked off, saying if we had a problem, we should have just talked to them in person, not blasted it on Facebook. The wife got the post saying that they're away and their dog sitters left the dogs outside all day. They contacted them and it won't be a problem again, but she was ticked at the claims that it's happened before, calling it all bullcrap. Now, note that I'm not the one that made the original post about the dogs. However, I do completely regret my leaving a comment and really wish that I could go back to last night and have not said anything. My husband then texted me at work, completely ticked off that I would comment anything about our neighbors on social media. I immediately deleted the comment off Facebook and sent apologies to my husband, and I expect he'll want us to both go over and apologize later. My husband hasn't been responding to my text all day. It doesn't help that we had an argument last night about the dogs barking. He wanted to go talk to them, and I said, nah, they already hate us. Let's just find a way to report it to the HOA. Why I thought leaving a comment was a good idea? I have no idea. Literally, I just wasn't thinking. I was just mad and I agreed with others. Today has completely sucked. I've been thinking about it all day at work, and I actually started crying to a coworker about it for a few brief moments. They were supportive, and sometimes we screw up, just apologize and shake this one off, and then gave me a hug. I know I'll have to probably apologize later today after my husband and I both get home from work. Any advice? I'm kind of flustered with words under pressure. This person says OP did not screw up, and OP replies, I was a little upset and freaked out this morning by just how upset my husband was over it. We're both typically pretty chill people, but I think what upset him was that he suggested going over and talking to them. I shut it down on the argument of, it won't change anything and they'll know who complained, and then turned around and did the exact opposite by posting a comment on social media. Actually, I posted right before our argument, but still. Yeah, I mean, if you post it online, there is a chance that they can see it. And if he wanted to go talk to them, man to man, woman to woman, and then you just say no and then post that, I can see where he might be upset. How would have you handled this one?
I sold this house to you, and I want to buy it back for less than half the price posted by my Kinetic. First, let me describe the kind of aunt that we have. This aunt, or entitled aunt I should say, of ours has been the source of headache for us as a family, emotionally and monetarily. She would always ask my mom and dad for a loan that would take years for her to pay. Where those loans go is one of the biggest questions to date. And whenever my mom or my eldest sister would ask her for the payment, she would just always play the "I'm family" card and be all emotional and crap to play on my mom's emotions. My mom has a soft spot with her family, and she would most likely, just let it slide. But not my eldest sister. She would constantly remind and warn my Aunt Karen to pay her debts or she'll do something about it. My aunt would then turn to my mom asking for protection from my sister, to which my mom would talk to my sister about it. My sister, though, is not having it and is just relentless on her pursuit of making my aunt pay her debts. This got to a point where my aunt warned to sue my sister if she doesn't stop, to which my sister openly invited. My sister works on a law firm, so she knows the law and that our Aunt Karen has no case at all. Ultimately, our aunt paid, but not without any parting words of how our family are a bunch of rude people and that she would never talk to us again and such. But after a month or so, she made up with my mom and everything was well. Except for my eldest sister. So for some context with the title, my aunt put her house up for sale due to her children moving out. She had 2 daughters who are all married now. Initially, she said that the house was getting too big for me to keep and maintain, and that she'd plan on buying a nice condominium near the downtown area. Her house is like a 30 to 45-minute drive from downtown. My uncle didn't want her to sell to someone that they don't know, or at least they don't have an affinity to, so she suggested just to sell the house to a relative or to a super close friend. My aunt then talked to my youngest sister, and I have 3 sisters and I'm the only guy, and they pitched her the idea of buying the house from her. At first, my sister didn't really want to entertain the idea of buying a house at this point in time, as they have 2 kids that they are sending to a not-so-cheap school. But my aunt then pulled the sentimental value card and that it would be a shame if the house was sold to someone else. Admittedly though, the house did have sentimental value for us siblings and cousins. We used to spend our summers over there as it's in a pretty nice neighborhood and we have friends there as well. A basketball court is fronting the house, which is a win-win situation since they both have boys and her husband is a good basketball player. My aunt saw this as an opportunity for the boys and her husband to train or whatever. To my aunt's credit, she did have a nice pitch to my sister, so I gotta give her that. My sister and her husband discussed this in length. It took a month before they had their decision. My sister and her husband, they decided to buy the house as they have long planned to have a house of their own. But her husband's grandmother begged them to stay at the current house they're living in until his grandmother can return back, as she was sorting something out from a different city. So they decided to have at least until they are ready to move. My eldest sister, who, by the way, was against all of this, helped with all the contract and the legal stuff so that they can cover their bases. The details of the sale, they aren't really familiar to me, but if my memory serves me right, the house and the lot was sold for more or less 1 million pesos. My sister gave my aunt a more than generous amount of time to move out, which was 6 months. When the time came that everything was moved out, my sister and her husband decided to pay a visit to their recently bought house and see to what extent the renovation would be. And to their surprise, the condition of the house was a literal crap hole. The walls and the ceiling were falling apart. The tiles on the floor were chipped or starting to get chipped. The main bedroom was a mess, and the kitchen smelled like someone died in there for weeks. Although my aunt did disclose that some renovation work would be needed, but she never disclosed that the house was that screwed up. But whatever, they decided to have the house renovated, and it cost them another 300,000. Once the renovation was done, the difference, it was night and day. As they were not moving into the new house yet, they listed the house for lease on some places, and it garnered a lot of interest. The house was then leased to a foreign couple. The transaction went smoothly with the help of my eldest sister once again, and the couple even paid full price for the whole duration of the lease. Everything was smooth as butter until yesterday. My sister got a call from the couple who leased the house early in the morning when she was dropping off the kids to school. This was on a Monday, and my sister is usually super busy on these days. And this was one of those days. She answered the call, and the following ensued. Now, side note, this is all based from my sister's retelling of the events and conversations. It might not be 100% accurate, but I'll try to be as close to it as possible. So we have my sister, the nice husband, the nice wife, and the entitled Aunt Karen. Sister says, "Hello, nice husband. Haven't heard from you for a long time. May I know why you called?" "Hey, there's someone at the gate claiming that this is her house." Sister's confused and she says, "Huh? She just might be a crazy person roaming around the area." "Well, no, she showed me pictures of the house and her in it." At this point, my sister kinda knew what was happening, so she hurriedly drove there. She was coming from a different side of town, so it took her about an hour to get there. When she got there, she saw entitled Aunt Karen outside screaming to let her in. The neighbors were already out and witnessing the commotion. Karen sees my sister and hurriedly goes to her. "Hey sister, they won't let me in," and she points toward the nice couple. "Karen, what are you doing here?" "Well, this was once my house. Am I not allowed to enter?" "What do you mean?" "I sold you this house, remember? And now I see that someone else is living here." "Well, they are leasing the house." "What? Why would you lease the house to someone that I don't know?" Sister's getting angry at this point. She says, "Because this is my house. I can lease it to whoever I want to." At this point, my sister couldn't believe the stupidity of this situation and was kind of getting embarrassed with the neighbors looking on, so she told Karen to go inside so they can discuss it. Once they were in the house, my sister introduced Karen to the couple who leased the property, and the following ensued. "How much did you lease this house for?" Karen asked the couple. Excuse me?" "I said, how much did you pay for the lease?" The wife chimes in, "Hey, I'm sorry, but we don't see the need of discussing that to you." "Why not?" Turns to my sister and asks, "How much are they paying for this lease?" It's none of your business, Aunt Karen, okay? This is my property and I'm already generous enough to have you let in." Whoa, I sold you this beautiful house and you treat me this way?" She looks at the couple again. "Was the house sold to you too? Tell me." The husband laughs. Look, lady, even if we did buy it, we don't need to tell you the specifics since we're not dealing with you. And no, we didn't buy this house." "You're a liar," faces my sister and says, "I'll take the house back now." Excuse me, are you out of your mind?" "No, I am not, and it's clear to me that you are an irresponsible homeowner." She takes something from her bag and says, "Here, take this 300,000 pesos and give me back my house." 300,000 pesos? Seriously? She slams the money to the Karen's chest. My sister's fuming at this point. "You need to leave my property right now. I won't allow you to disrespect me in front of these nice people. 300,000 when we bought this house for you for 1 million? You can't kick me out of here. This is my house." Sister grabs her phone. "I'm calling the cops now." Karen then bolts out of there, and on her way out, she screamed, "I'll come back and take the house. This is not the end of this." After Karen was nowhere to be seen, my sister broke down in front of the nice couple. The couple asked her a few details about Karen, and they were super understanding. My sister offered to return about a quarter of the total money that they paid for the lease, but the couple said that it's not necessary. Her husband knew what happened, and he was furious to a point that he almost went to the condominium where Karen was living in, but my sister was able to calm her down before anything bad had happened. As for now, my sister and her husband are seeking legal advice from my eldest sister and her firm. Do you agree with this comment? The aunt has absolutely no legal standing in this situation to do a dang thing. The house is your sister's, free and clear. She can do what she wants with it, and I'm sure that your other sister will tell her the same. I would suggest telling your sister and the couple leaving the house to get a stay-away order against the aunt so she just can't barge in without consequences. You think a restraining order would work? Let me know. Revenge on the Movie Producer, posted by Kibu Fox. Please allow me to note well in advance, this story is not mine. In fact, it's a rather popular story in the town that I once lived in, Savannah, Georgia, and it centers around one homeowner who got royally annoyed with a movie producer. There will be a note at the end about the fellow the story is about for those interested.
Okay, so first and foremost, when movie producers are looking for places to set a movie that takes place in colonial or even 1800s cities in the US, due to the sheer number of parks, wide roads, and period houses, they'll often select Savannah, Georgia. They'll pull up all the Spanish moss out of the trees or trim it back, pour dirt on the roads around the squares, and effectively backdate that part of the city to fit most any place, even up to some having used the area as a setting for places like early Washington, D.C., and even places in Britain or France. Typically, when producers do this, they will pay each homeowner whose house is used as background flavor a couple $1,000s for the licensing to do so. That'll be important later, trust me. They issue some rules like no electric lights being visible, not coming out of any door that faces the street, and you have to move your automobiles away from the drive if you have a drive. Well, in 1979, a producer came from Hollywood with the intention of using Savannah for that very purpose. Specifically, the producer was from one of the big 3-letter TV channels and was working on making a made-for-TV movie talking about the events after the assassination of Lincoln and the subsequent accusations of the doctor present at his death. The production went to the city to seek permission and then sent an announcement out to each of the homeowners telling them of the various days that the shoot was going to take place. However, much to their downfall, they also noted that the production company would not be compensating the homeowners for the use of their homes as backdrops. This was met with some great annoyance by the homeowners, who turned to the city for help only to be told that it was their civic duty to allow the use of their homes. Most everyone agreed to this and bit their lips. One homeowner, however, didn't. He decided to get revenge on the production, attempting to screw up their shooting every chance he got. He first started by leaving his car out in front of his house only to have it towed before filming started. He threatened legal action against the studio, but that fell on deaf ears. He forbade the use of his home in some of the shots, but the production company got the city to make him back down. Eventually, enough was enough. So he waited, biding his time until it was certain that they were filming. When the day came that his house was being used as a background shot, the homeowner grabbed a massive Nazi flag and hung it out in front of the house out of one of the top windows. The production company balked. They knew that this ruined any shot they'd use there. And what's more, they started to question just when he'd put the flag up. Was it just the one day? Or had all the previous shots, some of which showed the house from across the square, been ruined as well? They turned to the city for help, and the city just basically shrugged, saying that it was his First Amendment right to do that, and implied that had the production company paid the homeowners as had always been done before, then this probably wouldn't have happened. In the end, the production company had to end shooting and go to the homeowner begging for him to remove the offending flag. He did eventually do so, but only after his lawyer got a contract in writing that required the production company to pay all the homeowners for having their homes in the shot. The flag came down and the shooting wrapped in less than a day. Interestingly, it's said that in the movie in question, The Ordeal of Dr. Mudd, there are several shots where you can see that bright red flag flying from one of the homes in a distance. That stunt cost the producer quite a substantial amount of money and pushed production back at least a year while they tried to find every single instance that that flag flew in the background shots. This homeowner would go on to himself become very famous, though not for a good reason. Even so, he lives on among the legends of that city, both for his revenge against a movie producer and his later brush with fame. The fellow in question is none other than Jim Williams. Williams was an American antiques dealer and a historic preservationist based in Savannah, Georgia. He played an active role in the preservation of the Savannah Historic District for over 35 years. Williams was arrested on May 2, 1981 for the alleged murder of 21-year-old Danny Hansford, with whom he had been having a relationship with at Mercer House. After the subsequent 4 trials, a record in the state of Georgia, Williams was finally acquitted by a jury in Augusta in May 1989, 8 years after his arrest. Williams died in 1990 of heart failure, though AIDS is also suspected. He
He is the center of the story, Midnight in the Garden of Good and Evil novel, and later Clint Eastwood movie. Talk about standing up for your neighbors, holy cow, what a guy. But then to find out his other shady past and passing away a year after he was acquitted by a jury, oh my goodness, what a roller coaster of a story. What do you think? The HOA finds me, but I'm not even in the HOA. Click the video on your screen so you don't miss the fallout of this one, and I'll see you there.